Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello everyone. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Well, welcome to the cult. The Cult is a show that I do on Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. On Saturdays, we go live a little bit later at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. But I have been off for the last week. And I got to tell you guys, I really needed this vacation. I did. Things have been a little bit, I've been a little angsty lately. I've been a little bit pissy lately, some might say. But I got to tell you that I'm pretty sure that my week, more or less kind of like off the internet, I was still on the internet a little bit. I still kind of like looked at Twitter a little bit. I still was like looking at just some news, but really not that much. And I really think this is going to be one of the best things that's ever happened, because I feel like my week off of the internet has refilled my gives no F's jar. And if I was longer into the stream, the F would have been a swear, because I am out of F's to give. I really am. And I think that this is a positive thing. I think that if there's one thing that I saw, I don't know why my microphone, there we go. That's better. If there's one thing that I've learned from PorkFest, it's that I am so sick of this moral purity test bullshit. Listen, here's the thing. I don't care what people do with their lives. I don't care if you are... I actually don't care if you're a communist, as long as you don't force me to be a communist. I don't care if you are a conservative Christian. who just wants to live your life as though the Bible were the literal truth instead of a book of myths that have been put together that kind of make people feel good and teach some good life lessons. But if you want to treat that as though it's the literal truth, man, it's your life. Go to it. It is none of my effing business. But I am so sick and tired of pretending that I agree with some of this moral purity bullshit. Oh, look at that. I just swore, demonetized. Um, if you swear in like the first 8 minutes, like YouTube will ding you, but we've crossed that bridge now. It's too late. I am so sick of this moral purity test bullshit. Listen, we're gonna talk today about the games that people on the left play. We're going to talk today about the games that people on the right play. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Hitler. Because what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong with that particular plan, I guess. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned this week is that, and this is not a secret, the internet's not real life. In fact, real life is so much better than the internet. On the internet, you're basically going to meet like the lowest quality of person. Not in my chat, of course. My chat only has a high quality above IQ of 100 people. But like if you're not in a chat that monitors and moderates and all that stuff, then you're going to meet some really low quality people. And I think it's a sad state of affairs that the low quality people are driving the conversation on the internet. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good. I think it's putting everyone on both sides into a moral purity spiral. And I'm tired of it. And I have kind of just like, I think that there are so many people who we've talked about outrage addiction on the channel before, and we've talked about kind of like getting addicted to Twitter and stuff like that. And you really see the difference. It's hard because, the work I do, I have to be online a lot because it is the best place to find information. There's a lot of information to sort through. It's just the way it goes. But when you get your ass off the damn computer and you go out into the real world, you can actually look at a person and look at how they're interacting with people and look at the types of conversations that they're having with people. And you can say, addicted to the internet, not addicted to the internet, addicted to the internet, not addicted to the internet. You can tell it on like a visceral level. Has anyone else ever had this experience? And I think what I've learned, yes, I am wearing the psychedelic porcupine. Um, And I think where I'm at is, I was much happier in my life before the internet was all consuming, before I was thinking about this woke shit all the time. And I think that one of the reasons that I was happier is that, people think that I was like a socialist or like, I was never really a leftist. I was never a social justice warrior. I was never, what I would consider far left in on the political spectrum, even before I left the left. It makes a nice story to say that I was, but I wasn't. And I always thought that, you know, the extremes on both sides were ridiculous. And now it's like the extremes on both sides are ratcheted up to 1,000. And I think, I'm kind of rambling a little bit to say that I'm not buying into this bullshit on either side anymore. I think I think it's very easy on the internet to feel like you need to join a team. And once you like quote unquote join a team, you start getting into this groove where it's very easy to your life will be a lot easier if you adhere to the approved talking points of your chosen team. And if you don't adhere to the chosen talking points of your approved team, then they will punish you for it. And that is true on the right and that's true on the left. And I've said this from the very beginning. Woke is not of just about the political left. Woke is not just critical social justice. It's not just about leftists that you don't like that are doing crazy things with crazy hair and like all this stuff. It's not about that. Woke is about authoritarianism. It's about people who believe it is their personal job to tell you what you can think about and what ideas you can speak and what ideas you can consider, what conversations you can have, what words are appropriate to say, what words are not appropriate to say. These are people who don't know how to just mind their own fucking business. And I am tired of these people. You know, one of the things I love about PorkFest is you can meet quite literally any type of person that you want to at PorkFest. And you don't have to engage with anyone. But there is it is like 116-acre campground, like with thousands of people there every single day. And you can meet whoever you want. And you can talk about whatever you want. And you can even run through the field naked. And no, I didn't do that, but I did watch a bunch of people do it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So guys, let me just let me actually do the proper thing and introduce you to the topics we're going to explore on the show today. And then I'm going to ramble a little bit more because I absolutely did no drugs at PorkFest. I would never do such a thing. I would never engage in such debauchery. But if I did, there's not like an out of the realm possibility that I'm still like feeling the effects of those drugs that I absolutely did not do because I would never do such a thing. And so I might ramble a little bit on the stream today and we'll just we'll see how it goes. And yes, there were dicks everywhere. It's true. It's true. I saw more penises in the last week. And that was a function of the fact that my site, because I had an Unwoke art store on the site and we were selling merch and we sold some things like these cool t-shirts. You can still get them in the merch store, unwokeart.com. And my RV site happened to be 2 campsites down from the Body Freedom Village, which is the naked area. And yes, I did indeed see boobs as well. There were men and women who were running around naked and even some children as well, honestly. Now everyone's gonna go groomer, 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 but there were children that were running around naked. That's just the way it went. And none of it was sexual. It really wasn't. No one was harmed in the staging of the nude Olympics, that I did watch all the events of, but we're gonna talk about that a little bit today. And so I've got a couple articles pulled up that I do want to talk about. The first is actually going to be on my primary Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn .substack.com. If you want to support the work I'm doing, this is going to be the Substack that you want to subscribe to for $5 a month, $50 a year. Guess what? If you have not yet become a paying subscriber on this Substack, which gives you access to different community perks, it gives you access to the 2 weekly Zoom calls that I do with my community. One's going to be at 7 p.m. today. The next one's going to be on Wednesday at noon. It gets you access to the supporter Discord. It gets you access to premium content on the site that is only available to paying supporters, including the Inner Circle podcast. If you have not yet signed up as a paying member on my primary Substack, now's going to be a great time to do it because it is currently $5 a month or $50 a year. However, at the end of July, so a little over a month from now, at the end of July, I am raising the price on this Substack and it's going to be $8 a month or $80 a year. Now, it's only $3 additional a month, so no harm, no foul if you want to continue to take your time and decide whether or not you want to support the most unique, unwoke content on the internet. That is going to be, entirely your choice. But if you want to lock in the $5 a month, $50 a year rate moving forward, then you're going to want to sign up before the end of July because if you do sign up as a monthly or annual supporter, by that time, you will be grandfathered in to the whole price. Is locals going up? Yes, it is. The inflation is a thing, ladies and gentlemen. Every single thing is going to be going up to $8 a month or $80 a year, and which I still think is actually completely reasonable, but I'm giving you a really, 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 really long time to decide whether or not you want to upgrade at the current price before that. But that's just going to be the way it is, and there it is. This guy says, and Tech Hershey maybe. Carlin, I disagree with 70% of what you have to say, but dang, I do want you to keep talking. Well, I appreciate that, I suppose. Fish Addict, who did join us at Pork Fest, said the very loud couple across from us, not Pork Fest attendees, but seasonal residents, were far more annoying than the naturalists. Isn't that the truth? And I do want to do a big shout out. So I did meet Fish Addict in person at Pork Fest. We talked about the fact that when I yell at him sometimes, it comes from a place of love. It really does. But I do also want to give a big shout out to my friends Incognito and Kino Reviews, and also Gabrielle Clark, who all made the trip to PorkFest. It was great to hang out with them. We hung out at the site all week long. We had a great old time. So thank you guys if you were able to make it up to PorkFest for coming up. White Wizard Alex says you took no drugs at PorkFest. That I know. Well, I can't. I cannot be engaging in that type of debauchery. I would never do such a thing. So it's just the way it goes. I'm so sorry to disappoint. Anyway, getting back to my Substack, we are going to be reading an article called The Language Game Woke 101, what you must understand about how they use language, because I did a little experiment. So one of the things that I did when I was at PorkFest is I did a presentation about doing these deep dives into socialism that we've been doing for a while now. And I have to say that it's always interesting when you kind of pressure test your ideas out in the wild. First off, I had a great response to that socialist presentation. And I was really surprised about that because it was on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Now, PorkFest is a week long event. Most people don't even get to PorkFest until like Thursday or maybe even Friday. And that's when it really starts to ramp up. So when you have an early presentation, you're just like, I don't even know how many people are going to show up. I don't even know how many people are here. I don't know any of these things. But I have to say, Tuesday at 2 p.m., I had a really big audience for this socialist presentation. It was funny because it kind of started off with a nice little mid-sized audience, and I was pretty happy about that. But as I was doing the presentation, more people just kept coming in, grabbing chairs. They asked some great questions. There were actually a couple socialists that were listening to the presentation that tried to trick me with a gotcha question, which I thought was funny. Anyway, my point is this, that it's always interesting when you pressure test your ideas in the wild. We're kind of in a little insular place. I know that's funny to say on the internet, but we're in this little insular place, right? Where a lot of us have been engaging with these ideas for a while. And so we kind of know what's going on. So it's interesting when you have conversations with people who don't know your content, who aren't familiar with your work, who are engaging with it for maybe the first time. And so I got to get some feedback on some of my ideas and talk about some stuff. And one of the things I realized, and I think I knew this theoretically, but it's always good to give confirmation, is that there are still so many effing people that don't know what's going on. There are still so many effing people. Maybe it's just because I talk about this stuff all day, every day, right? But there are still so many people that don't understand very, very, very basic things like the language game. And I don't think it's for lack of intelligence. I don't think it's for lack of wanting to understand what the left are doing. I think it's just that people are really busy and they're hearing information from all these sources. And to be quite frank, a lot of sources about the woke left really, really, really suck. So if you're getting information from the Daily Wire, I'm sorry, you don't actually have a good sense of what's going on in the world. And you don't have a good sense of the woke left. You might be able to know some cringy details here and there, but by and large, you don't have a fucking clue, man. If you're getting information from most conservative influencers, you don't know what you're talking about. If you're getting information from leftist outlets, you really don't know what's going on, man. So I guess this is a long way of saying is that I'm going to I had already started doing this to a certain extent, but I'm really going to be putting a lot of effort into going back to basics and kind of trying to really break it down at the most simple level that I possibly can. Here is how you need to understand the left. Here's what they're doing with language, like really kind of like breaking it down for a lot of details that I think a lot of you already know. But here's where I'm going to need your help. I need people to be sharing this information. Oh no, Jimmy. Oh no, honey, you can cry all you like. If you're watching the Daily Wire every day, I promise you, you have no fucking clue what's going on in the world, buddy. No fucking clue. Sit down, try to contain your whining because we have a no whining rule on this channel. And you can either learn or you can go cry in a corner that, oh my gosh, she insulted the Daily Wire. Was my Pork Fest presentation recorded? I do believe it was. We'll see how that goes. I did it all off the top of my head, so we'll see. Anyway, I am going to really lean into the Woke 101 series on my Substack. And what I need your help in doing is I need people to share this information. I need you to share it with your friends. I need you to take the information that I'm giving you and I need you to go out and teach people because I can't teach everyone on the internet. I'm too much of an evil bitch to teach everyone on the internet. I make way too many people cry. Like our friend here that just came in and told me I had a shit take. Like he's probably off crying in a corner already. He's already moved on to someone who will repeat his talking points. Anyway, I can't teach everyone, but if we all work together, we can reach those people whose fifis are just not, aligned with where I'm at as a teacher, but we can still teach them the information. Just got to do it backhanded. I got to get it to them through a friend or through a contact or something like that. And so when I'm writing this stuff, guys, one of the best things you can do is share it out with your friends, share it out with your platform, share it out with all those things. We're going to talk about the language game that the woke left are playing today. Oh, Jimmy, apparently you didn't get the memo, buddy. There are 2 rules on this channel. Number 1, don't be a dick. That means you don't insult me, which you just did, and passive-aggressive insults like you fucking conservative idiots are inclined to do are still insults, and you can cry about that all you like, but you just broke the don't be a dick rule. Number 2 is no whining, so I'm sure you're gonna come back and you're gonna start whining now. Not allowed on my channel, Jimmy. So Jimmy's gonna get a little timeout, and if Jimmy wants to come back, then he can adjust his fucking attitude because this is my house and I don't allow that bullshit here. The Phyllis office, we got your back, Dr. K. I do appreciate that. All right. So we're going to talk about the language game that the left plays. Oh, God, the soap. Well, I'm pretty sure I got second place in Soapbox Idol. I got either I scored really well in Soapbox Idol, so I was really happy about that. But there was a little commotion at the end of Soapbox Idol that I really hope they got on video that maybe we'll talk about in the Zoom call today. So we'll have to see about that. But I do believe they did get those on video as well. So we're going to talk about the language games the left plays. And then we're going to talk about naked people. Because I have this other Substack called The Red Pill Diaries, which is The Red Pill Diaries. Just Red Pill Diaries. I'll put the link in the chat. redpilldiaries.substack.com. This is kind of like my little narcissistic side project where basically I write about random thoughts on my red pill journey, which has been going on for about 3 years now. And I feel like there's so many layers to a red pill journey where like first you start off with like hating the left, and then if you keep going you start to realize that the right is exactly like the left. And then if you keep going, you start to hate everyone and you think that everyone's full of shit. And then at some point, you really start seeing through all the bullshit. And I feel like I've gone through several layers of the onion of like the red pill journey. And I write about it sometimes on this site, like basically whatever I want to write about. And what I wrote last night is about my experience attending the Naked Olympics at Porkfest and why I think that the conservative right is full of shit and why Libs of TikTok, I'm sorry, Libs of TikTok is completely disingenuous with their takes. And I'm going to prove that. And we're going to read about it in this article that I wrote, or perhaps more of an essay. There I was, surrounded by dicks. Real ones. No, seriously. That's going to be what second thing we do today. And then just to, we don't want to do anything too controversial on my first day back, all right? So we're going to talk about Hitler. Who wants to talk about Hitler? Now, of course, I do have some experience getting in trouble with talking about Hitler before, but since I have been canceled 19 ways from Sunday since then, I no longer give a fuck and people can have whatever feelings they want about it. And I'm not the only one talking about Hitler. Moms for Liberty is talking about Hitler. Now, those of you who are familiar with my work and my rants know that I am not a big fan of Moms for Liberty. I'm not. I think Moms for Liberty is a complete and total grifting operation. Moms for Liberty is endorsing school board candidates that then get elected to the school board and then vote in favor of radical gender ideology because Moms for Liberty is not vetting the candidates that they're endorsing for school board because it's all just a big show to make money, honey. I think that Moms for Liberty is single-handedly responsible for the book banning bullshit that is happening all across the countries where the conservative right are putting all of their energy into this book banning bullshit that is accomplishing absolutely effing nothing. And not only is it not accomplishing anything, it's also taking time and attention away from every other important thing that could be done. So I am not a fan of Moms for Liberty at all. However, I find myself in the rather precarious position of needing to take a principled position on this. And the fact of the matter is that even though Moms for Liberty blocked me and half of my community on Twitter for, asking them very basic questions about very basic things, even though I think Moms for Liberty is a total grifting operation that leaves its local chapters in a lurch and doesn't support them at all, even though I think Moms for Liberty don't actually believe in liberty, they just believe in Christian conservatism, I'm actually on their side in the great Hitler quoting debacle. And I think that principles only mean something when you stick by them when they are inconvenient. And I wish that organizations like, I don't know, PragerU had acted in a principled way instead of, running like the cowardly little bitches that they are. I wish they had acted in a principled way when the entire conservative right decided to cancel me for having a 2-hour spiritual discussion where they took one quote out of context and then smeared me to high heaven for it. I wish they had been a little bit more principled. So I will take the high road that PragerU is not capable of taking and that most conservative influencers are going to shy away from because they're all little bitchy cowards. I will take the high road and take the principled position. And we're going to talk about that. So guys, that is what we have on the show for today. And those are the articles that we're going to discuss, and I might ramble a little bit because it's my first day back from vacation, guys. I got to, get back in the groove of things a little bit. But guys, just as a reminder, please do make sure you are subscribed to that Substack. And if you enjoy this psychedelic porcupine shirt that I'm wearing, I know you can't really see it right now, but you know where you can see it is on the website. I do still have the Pork Fest collection. Actually, we can go into the specific Pork Fest collection. It's Pork Fest 2020 up in the menu. This is some of the wares that I was selling at Pork Fest, to include the psychedelic porcupine hoodie, there's hoodies, there's t-shirts, there's stickers, all sorts of stuff. I am wearing the t-shirt right now, so you can see the colors really do come out beautiful. They really did a good job. You can get the Pork Fest collection at unwokeart.com for about another week, and then I'm going to take it off the site till next year. But you know what's funny is this wasn't even my bestseller at Pork Fest. Actually, this one sold really well on the t-shirt. That was one of the favorite designs. But the favorite t-shirt of all of Pork Fest, the favorite design of all of Pork Fest, rather, was the Live Free or Die, Death is Not the Worst of Evils, John Stark porcupine. And I got to tell you, I wasn't expecting this to be the favorite design, so I was really surprised by it, but it did come out great. It looked great on the t-shirt. I got to tell you, they did a really good job on the printing. And so next year, I will absolutely be bringing this design back to Pork Fest next year with a couple other like surprise goodies, of course. But if you still want to get this year's collection, you can head over to unwokeart.com for about another week week, and you can pick up some prizes from the Pork Fest collection. Got all sorts of goodies in there, including Dennis's dog running for president. Ron Paul was, of course, the hero of Pork Fest. Dennis doesn't like this picture of the dog because he's like, the dog doesn't bend his ears like that, Carolyn. But whatever, Dennis. Like, I can only make so many AI art pictures of a dog. Okay, it's close enough. But you can get all that good stuff and more, including I also got this design on a hoodie. It looks pretty great. You can get that at unwokeart.com if you feel so inclined. And of course, that all does go to support the work I'm doing. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. Please mount that like button for me if you have not already. Of course, we do mount the like button on this channel like adults, not smashing the like button like little teenagers who have we do it the right way here. So let's jump into this. Woke 101. You must understand how they use language as a weapon. Last week, I asked my audience the following question. So what happened is I came back from it was at Pork Fest. And I was like, do people even know what these words mean? So I asked on Twitter and I asked on Substack notes, what do you think the word queer means? What do you think the word whiteness means? What do you think equity means? Don't Google, don't look it up, don't fucking cheat. If you wanna offer some answers in the chat, like please go ahead and do so. That would be great. I got about 100 responses to this tweet, and some of them were the same. And predictably, the people who got them right are the people that watch all my stuff. But so many of them were different. And this was honestly a little bit surprising to me because essentially I thought that some of these words at this point were kind of no-brainers. Like equity. Guys, you need to understand what equity means, okay? Equity is not the same thing as equality. Equity is its own beast. Yes, philosophist? Whiteness does mean capitalism. We'll get to that. Sam says queer is an ideology, whiteness is capitalism, equity is equal outcomes. Excellent. So people like Sam, they got the answer correctly. But I have to tell you guys, there were so many people who got it wrong. Maybe they had a good understanding of one term, but like they didn't have a good understanding of the other two terms. And the point here is this: it's not to make anyone feel bad about like, did you get it right or did you get it wrong? The point is this: you need to understand that the language game that the woke left is playing is intentional. Okay? It's intentional. Well, we've got Aaliyah, she, her over on LinkedIn. This I sad. Aaliyah, did you mean this is sad? You're welcome to have a conversation with us. Why do you think it's sad? Why do you think it's sad that I'm teaching people about the language game that the woke left plays? Feel free to chat in. Let us know. Make sure to check for typos. I'm going to display it on the internet if you chat in, but you can feel free to have a conversation. Anyway, so I was really surprised at how many people did not get all three terms at least somewhat correct. And what people need to understand is this confusion over language is the left's most important weapon against us, okay? Language is one of their most important weapons. They take terms that commonly mean one thing and use them with different meanings in order to gain acceptance for whatever idea they are peddling. Anytime you are interacting with the woke left, you need to be aware that they are playing this language game. You need to be aware that they will lie to you. You need to be aware that sometimes they don't even know why they're doing it. And I'm going to explain why that happens. But if you think that the woke left care about gay and trans people, they want you to think that. That's why they use the term queer. If they want you to think that they care about racism, which they don't care about, they're going to say whiteness because that's going to make you think that they care about this issue. It's a giant virtue signal. If they want you to believe that they care about social justice, which they don't, they're going to use the term equity. None of these things are true. The woke left doesn't care about gay and trans people. They don't care about racism. They sure as shit don't care about social justice. All they care about are gaining as much power as possible, destabilizing the system, attacking capitalism, ushering in their little Marxist utopia. You've got to understand what you're walking into every single time you have a conversation with them. And you have to be on your toes to really, really just be mindful of the fact that everything they are saying is a contradiction with what they actually mean. The woke left speak in code. It's like a bastardized version of the English language in which they take advantage of our collective lack of critical thinking to slightly twist the meaning of words slowly over time. They use the schools to do this starting in college. Then, so basically, what happened, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on this channel, but basically, what happened is the woke left took over the colleges and universities. So then they changed the language there. And by woke left, I mean Marxists. They took over the colleges and universities, got themselves into professor positions, teaching positions, stuff like that, until they had basically a critical mass in some of the most critical departments within academia. Okay. Then once they had a critical mass in academia, they were specifically focusing on the schools of education, right? Because the schools of education are where you train the teachers. Once they did that, the language seeped from academia through the teachers that they were training into K through 12 schools. And here's what you have to keep in mind. The people who have learned this in academia, who were the teachers in the schools that your children are learning from, have never known anything differently. They have never known different definitions of these words. Yes, Kaiwan, this is an Edward Bernays trick. You're absolutely right. Who's Edward Bernays? Anyone know? Edward Bernays is the father of modern public relations. I was a public relations major in college. I was a communications major, but I had a specialization in public relations. They made you learn about Edward Bernays all the effing time. I have read like 57 books on Edward Bernays. Okay, maybe not 57 exactly, but I have read a metric fuck ton of books on Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays what was he? Like, he was related to P.T. Barnum, and I forget the exact relation. It's like his nephew or something like that. Edward Bernays was behind pretty much every modern public relations movement that you know about. Edward Bernays is the reason we have built-in bookcases in houses, because the book industry got Edward Bernays to lobby the construction industry to build bookcases into houses. Because guess what's going to happen if you got a built-in bookcase to your house? You're going to need to buy books to put in the built-in bookcase. Edward Bernays is the reason we eat steak and eggs for breakfast, because that wasn't a thing. Americans didn't do that until the steak industry hired Edward Bernays to sell more steak. And he said, okay, well, how are we going to sell more steak? We're going to make it into a different meal. That's when we started having steak and eggs for breakfast. That was a PR stunt. And you can go on and on and on and on and on. Freud's nephew. Yes. Isn't that funny? Doesn't the woke left love Freud? We'll do a deep dive into Edward Bernays sometime. I haven't done one in a while. That'll be a fun thing to do. Philosophist says every day is opposite day with the left. That's exactly right, Philosophist. All right. So, what you need to understand is that the people who are pushing this language change have never known anything differently, because this is what they were taught by people that they trusted, because the woke left has been doing this a really, 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 really effing long time. Now the language has completely infected the schools in a way that most people don't realize. Your kids are learning the language from the woke left as their first language, the first definition they're learning, something they'll hear from their teachers, if those teachers graduated from the College of Education in roundabout the last 20 years or so. This is not a transition generation with the language. This is really important. Now, I have a best guess of the timeline of the woke left kind of like winning the battle of taking over the institutions, right? And it started basically in the 1930s when the Frankfurt School came here, set up shop at Columbia University. And it's been the long, slow battle of inches since then. But essentially, what I think is, and I'm going to try to prove this at some point way down the road, what I think is that around about the last 20 years, they've had a pretty critical mass of everything. And so basically, every single teacher that has gone through a college of education in the last 20 years has been fully indoctrinated into this ideology. What that means is they don't know anything differently. It's what they've always been taught. And then they're going and teaching it to your kids, not understanding that there are different conceptualizations of the world because these are the programs that they've been put through. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. What that means, I have someone mad on my Substack right now because, hey, why are you allowing naked people? Meh, 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 meh. God, I'm going to be pissing off some conservatives this week. I'll tell you that. What that means is that this is not the transition generation for the language. That was the last generation. When they slowly started changing the meaning of words, it was not this generation in which they changed the meaning, not the one we're currently in right now. They already did it. Okay? This is really important for people to understand. We are in the, what I think, and I could be wrong about this, and someone is welcome to try to prove me wrong. I think that we are in the first generation post language transition. And this is important because this makes it really, 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 really difficult to back up and to undo the damage that has been done. Well, Ninja Artist, I will talk about whatever I like on this channel, so, it might be personal gripes. That's just the way it goes. It's my channel. There will be no whining and complaining about it. Thank you very much. So I want to give everyone a minute here with this. Philosophist says, this is scary shit. Yes, it is. Because there is no backing up. There's no backing up. Let's sit with that for a second. Brooklyn Way says, welcome back. The code is both esoteric, their academia-led trope, and exoteric, what they guide the public to believe, which creates the much-needed slippery slope for said destabilization. That's exactly right, Brooklyn Way. I appreciate the super chat. Vince says, in other words, we are seeing the fruits of the seeds planted a generation or 3 ago. That is exactly right. So, I really want people to understand this because it's tricky, right? Because I don't want people to automatically assume that every public school teacher is an evil, woke leftist that is just going to groom your child. Because most people who are public school teachers are probably not true believers of the ideology. They're useful idiots, useful innocents, whatever you want to call it. They're doing what they think they need to do in order to be a good person. I think that we have to have that nuance to the take. However, useful idiots are still really effing dangerous. Useful idiots are sometimes even more dangerous than the true believers. Pardon me, hang on. No, they don't, Autumn. We are not giving a round of applause for public school teachers here. That is absolutely untrue. But I do want people to really understand that most of the public school teachers teaching this bullshit and teaching this new language really don't know what they're doing. It's what they've always known. Now, Some might say that isn't their fault. Okay, fine. But it is their responsibility. And even more than that, it is the responsibility of everyone who has children in school that is being taught by these people to have a good sense of what they're talking about so that their kids aren't sucked into this woke left ideology by default. Excuse me. Okay. What I mean by that is that the definitions of the words transitioned into what we have now have been taught for 2 generations. In this essay, I'll give you 3 examples of what they're doing, utilizing the 3 most important words that you need to understand the true definition of in today's context. Now, the words that I have selected to discuss are queer, whiteness, and equity. That's not to say those are the only words that have shifted their definition, but I think in today's context, they are the most important. So that's where we're going to start. And I want people to be aware that this is a trick that they play with every word. Okay. And you have to be aware of the trick. You have to be aware of the mechanics of what they're doing with using a slightly different definition of the word, bastardizing the definition of the word so that you can pick it out in real time and go, is that really what you mean by that? What is your definition of the term queer? What is your definition of the term whiteness? What is your definition of the word equity? You always have to be on the lookout and make sure you're checking yourself and not just buying into the definitions that they're giving you. Beth, thank you for the super chat. It's good to see you again. Yuri Bresmanov said they had already indoctrinated a generation back in 1984. So this is the 3rd generation they're brainwashing. We missed you, fearless leader. That could be right, Beth. I'm going to be working on a timeline that I think is going to help make this more clear, but it could be the 3rd generation. It could be, I mean, I would argue in terms of the schools, I don't think it went that far back. Not in the schools explicitly, but I could be wrong about that, and I am open to being wrong. So, queer used to be used as a slur for gay people, right? Today, queer is not even a reference to gay or trans people. People need to start understanding this. You do not have to be gay to be queer. You do not have to be trans to be queer. Queer is not an identity. Queer is a far left political ideology. And we know this because on Discovery Plus, in this show they did called The Book of Queer, they quoted the father of queer theory, Derek Halprin, who said that queer is whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. Okay? Sin says program reading was started in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1967. The older teachers who were taught how to read were let go. I was seeing this start even then. Well, but here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. And I appreciate that this stuff has been around for a while. What I am talking about is when did it reach a critical mass? Because something happening in one city with 1 or 2 teachers is not the same thing as when did it reach a critical mass. Onesies and twosies is not the same as 70%, 80%, 90%. We need to be nuanced about this. So one set of lived experience is not indicative of the larger question, which is what I'm interested in at this point. So, queer is specifically defined today as a political ideology that goes against the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. What that means is that you do not have to be gay to be queer. Queer is not a sexual orientation. It is not a gender identity. It is just whatever is at odds with the dominant. You can just declare yourself queer and all of a sudden you're queer. And that, again, is purposeful. They don't want there to be any sort of barrier to entry to be considered a part of their little, like, Marxist revolutionary club. To understand the code, you have to understand that the queer movement, which is Marxism, hijacked the LGBT movement and then changed the definition to advance their own interests, which were not necessarily in the interests of the LGBT community. And Stephen is representing that. He's saying, I'm gay, I'm not queer. And exactly, Sam. Exactly. Biological sex is one of those things that they're trying to disrupt. They want everyone to be non-binary. They want to abolish the gender binary, liberate us from the gender binary, stuff like that. So that's the language game that they used with the word queer. Now, when it turns to whiteness, whiteness used to mean pasty white skin, like me, maybe a little bit more red and tan than I was a week ago, but like pasty white skin, that's what it used to mean. But it doesn't mean that anymore. Now, Womanly says they're also forced teaming groups of people so that anyone who objects to queerness also appears to be racist, i.e., focusing on Black trans women. That is only to gain power. It is only to gain power. And people really need to, like, here's another thing, guys. You do not have to buy into the definitions that they're trying to get you to buy into. You do not have to agree with their definitions. And saying they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that, that should never be an excuse for how we act in these situations, because it's purposefully trying to put us on the back foot. All right. So when queer says whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, whiteness says whatever supports the dominant power structure. When systemic whiteness, or that should have been systemic racism, I wrote this late last night. When systemic racism was introduced into the definition of racism in 2020, which I write about in my book, they literally changed the definition of racism. The term whiteness ceased to be about the individual and was instead adapted to the collective. So here is the trick that they played with whiteness. Whiteness used to be about the skin color of the individual, right? The individual's thoughts about whether or not they were superior to someone else because of the color of their skin. That's what it used to be about. Today, it means the collective. The collective, the system, that's why they say systemic racism. They fundamentally changed the framing of the term. And the reason they wanted to change the framing of the term is because Marxists do not care about individuals. Vince says, now whiteness means the qualities of the mainstream culture. Well, yeah, more or less. Hence why I could be referred to as multiracially white supremacist for being punctual or a capitalist. Well, it's less about like, so queer is going to be about the qualities of mainstream culture. Queer is against any of the qualities of mainstream culture. Whiteness is about the system. Now, what system supports the world we have today? What is the system that they blame for everything? What is the system that they're rebelling against? People think that the greatest enemy of the woke left is white people. This has always been and will always be a lie. The woke left does not care if you're white. The woke left loves white people who agree with it. The woke left hates Black people who disagree with it. The greatest enemy of the woke left is not white people, it's capitalism. It's capitalism, capitalism, capitalism. So when they say whiteness, they are not talking about your skin color. They're not talking about you as an individual. They are talking about the system that is upholding the dominant power structure, and that system is capitalism. You can also think of this as the bourgeois. You can think of this as private property owners. You can think of this as landlords, who the boss is, who the business owner is. Whoever owns the power structure is going to be considered white, because power is what the woke left cares about more than anything else. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. Welcome back. And of course, Herbert Marcuse in Essay on Liberation said the next proletariat would be the sexual and racial minorities after Marxism failed in the economic front. That is absolutely right. So what they're doing right now is they're using race, they're using sexual orientation, gender identity as weapons to reframe the class warfare because economic class wasn't doing it any longer. And so they had to try to use different weapons because they weren't being able to get people riled up just on the basis of pure economic class. Nope, not correct. It is a lie that has been perpetrated, I'm sorry, by the right that this is about Western culture. It is not about Western culture. It is about capitalism. Not every country in the East are Marxist. There are capitalist countries in the East. This is not about Western culture, guys. And I do understand why people say that. I really do. So I don't want to make anyone feel too bad if you think that, because it's a talking point that's been repeated over and over and over and over and over again. But do you know who's been repeating it? The people who claim to be classical liberals, which I hate that term so much. I really do. Or people on the conservative right. And typically it's the ones that want you to think that it's about skin color. Do you know what the white identitarians call white people? Does anyone want to take a guess what the real, because there are absolutely real white identitarians, I've covered them on the channel. Does anyone want to guess what white identitarians, the real racists, call white people? Oh, Sam, buddy, I'm about to piss you off something fierce because you are advancing white identitarian talking points, my friend. The white identitarians call white people with white skin Western kind. Western kind. So every single time you are advancing, they do call them, well, no. Jews are not considered white. Jews aren't white anyway, but like white identitarians do not consider Jews to be white. They call them Western kind. So every single time you are advancing talking points that whiteness is just about Western culture, those are coming from really effing bad people, and you should know that because it's all purposeful. The woke left are not the only people who play the language game. The woke right play it too. I have documented extensively how actual white identitarian groups are trying to influence right-wing culture to use their language because it makes it easier to recruit white identitarians. And this whole Western kind bullshit is part of that. It's important that we're specific about what we mean. Capitalism is not just a feature of the West. And so to say that they are attacking Western culture can really be twisted to mean something that is not altogether all that accurate. And I'm sorry if I'm the first one to tell you guys this. I'm sorry if your influencers have lied to you about this. I used to think this too until I actually looked more into it. And then I realized the origins of the language of the thing I was talking about. Anyway, let's keep going. Spent too much time on that. Lastly, we have equity and equality. And I really think that they've positioned these two terms next to each other because it's really easy to confuse them. But the basic difference between equity and equality is that when the woke left says the term equity, and sometimes they even use the term equality, they do not mean everyone has an equal chance. What they mean is everyone ends in the same place. Equality is about equality of opportunity. Everyone shows up and everyone gets a shot, and the best man wins. I think most of us can get behind that. Equity does not mean that. It means equal outcomes. Every single time you hear the term equity, you need to think Marxism. And guess what, guys? There are equity departments in the vast majority of public school districts today. Every single time you see the word equity, and it is not referencing like a mortgage or something like that, you need to really understand that you are watching Marxism be implemented right in front of you, right out in the open. No one's even trying to hide it. And the reason that they're not trying to hide it is they have successfully convinced the majority of the population that the word means something different than what it actually means. So you have to be the ones that keep your eye on the ball with this. You have to be the ones that are keeping yourselves in check to make sure you're really understanding what you're talking about. And guys, make sure you are double checking everyone. And that includes me. I never want anyone to take what I'm saying at face value either. I do the best job I can do in breaking this information down, and I'm honestly pretty sure I've got it pretty well locked at this point. I've gotten really good at it. I've been like immersed in it for a long time, but I make sure you're fact checking everyone because I'm sure many of you are listening to many different voices. You absolutely should be listening to many different voices, but most of those voices don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I think one of the greatest challenges that at least I feel like I face is having to unteach people things that they've learned from other influencers who may have the very best of intentions, but they're still not teaching you the correct information because they're not really listening to what the woke left is saying and what the woke left is doing. So please make sure you are double checking everything, doing your own homework, doing your own deep dives. This is why I do many deep dives on the channel where we watch the video ourselves and we talk about it so you can see the same things that I'm seeing. I'm not just doing it off by myself in a corner and then reporting back. Okay. So you got to make sure you're keeping yourself honest. No one else is going to do it. It's exactly why laziness, as in lazy parents that allow it to breed lazy kids, as in destroying kids' education in schools, too lazy to learn the difference between equality and equity. Well, I don't think it's laziness as much as I think it's about people are busy, but sometimes it is just laziness. I don't think you're wrong about that. All right. So now that we know the language games that are played, let's look at a different type of game that is played on the right. And we're going to talk about naked people. Who wants to hear the story of when I was surrounded by actual dicks? I'll pop the link in the chat. You can check it out on my Substack, the Red Pill Diaries. This is not to be confused. Am I even online on Rumble right now? Hang on. Oh, I am. Good, good, good. I thought that wasn't working. Hey, Rumble. Let me pop this chat over here and let me give a shout out to PS76. Thank you for the dollar over on Rumble. Goes against the normal, legitimate, dominant. So by stepping out of the matrix and decoding the woke lexicon, we're queer. Okay, I think I'm going to call myself queer. All right, so this is going to be a good example. So this is what I'm seeing on a Rumble chat right now, where PS76 is saying, "Well, I guess I'm just going to call myself queer then." Why the fuck would you do that? No. Why the fuck would you do that? Why on earth would you accept the left? Let's go back over here for a second. Why on earth would you accept the left's made up definitions of this is why conservatives fucking lose? Let me just show you. I'm going to show we're going to get a little meta for a second. We're going to get meta. Actually, let me not do it this way. I don't want to be meta about this. Hang on. I'm going to do this a different way. Pop out chat. That way I have it all in one place. There we go. Okay, now I can share this. Boom. So this is what I'm responding to. PS 76 says, goes against the normal legitimate dominant. So by stepping out of the queer matrix and decoding the woke lexicon, we're queer, I'm okay. I think I'm going to call myself queer. No. The correct answer is not that you adopt the woke left's definition of words. The correct answer is that you know what the F you're talking about and what they are talking about, so you can reject their definition of the word. This is why, this is principally why conservatives lose. Because they're like, oh, well, the left is just, the left is defining all white people as racist. The left is saying all these things. I guess the left is going to call me racist, so I might as well act racist. The left is going to call me homophobic and transphobic, so I might as well just act that way. They're going to call me that anyway. Why are you allowing the left to dictate the definitions of words? That makes no effing sense. So no, do not call yourself queer. If you are calling yourself queer, you are affiliating yourself with a dangerous far left political ideology. You're not gaining any ground back. You are, in fact, ceding the ground to the left. It's a really bad idea. Please change your strategy. Thank you for the $1. I do appreciate that. All right, let me just go back. Talking Story says, I work for Moms for Liberty in my state for the purpose of waking up parents. I work with both sides to at least get the radical stuff out of elementary schools. Well, if you're just banning books in elementary schools, which is what Moms for Liberty generally does, I'm not sure you're making as much progress as you think you are. If that's not what you're doing, then that's good. But we'll talk about that, because I actually don't think Moms for Liberty is doing much of anything that's valuable. Not on the local level. There are absolutely local groups who have been able to make some progress, but if all your guys are doing is book banning, that's not going to make real progress, and we can talk about why that is if you want. Jack says, my friend's parents have reverted to referring to me as an F slur because of queer theory. Oh, isn't that nice of them? Isn't that nice? Jesus Christ. The right is like, seriously, like, if they're going to call us homophobes anyway, we might as well be the best gay haters that we can be. And they somehow think that's going to win them elections. I have no idea why. Anyway, let's talk about naked people, because that's really going to piss the right off. Let me get this on my screen. And I want to tell you about a time that I was sitting in a field surrounded by like a lot of dicks. It was glorious. It really was. Okay. It wasn't an experience I ever expected to have in my life, but I was sitting in a field and then I looked up and I was surrounded by dicks. I'm not joking. It was the last two events of the Naked Olympics at PorkFest 2023. And everyone watching and participating in the event had to move from the Body Freedom campsite to a field that was just a few aisles away at the back of the campground for the discus throw. And the discus in this case was a frisbee. And the long run, and this field was really effing big, okay? The long run was to the end of the field and back, completely naked. And the winners of these events would decide the winner of the Naked Olympics. So we got out to this long field, and I kind of sat down in the grass, and I was like sitting among like other spectators as well. And for some reason, and I don't know why this happened, there were no assigned places or anything. All of the contestants in the Naked Olympics like surrounded me on both sides. And I was like sitting in the grass, and I looked up, and I swear There was just a row of dicks on both sides of me, and they were like all at fucking eye level. I was like, and it wasn't sexual at all, I swear. But it was one of those things where I was looking up, I was like, all right. And so I looked up and there were contestants standing to either side of me, and I couldn't help but be completely amused by the realization that I was literally surrounded by dicks. But seriously, the Naked Olympics at PorkFest was glorious. From a first-time spectator perspective, it was probably one of my favorite events at PorkFest. I'd become curious about the Naked Olympics last year because I had heard through the grapevine that someone at PorkFest ran the entire Naked Olympics wearing nothing but his gun. And so when my Unwoke Art RV site was just a few campsites away from the Body Freedom Village, I knew I had to go and see the Naked Olympics because I was right there. I could literally throw a rock and hit them. It wasn't that far away. So we had an event at my campsite. We painted our 3D printed porcupines, and then a couple of us walked up and went to the Body Freedom Village for the Naked Olympics. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I got there, but I kind of like settled in to get started. I think there were like 9 contestants. There were 2 women. There were mostly men. I'm pretty sure there were 7 men. I might be off by like a dick or two, as it were. But there were contestants of both genders. There were all ages were represented. There was actually an older kind of lady that I had to give her a bunch of credit because she like it's like an old hippie lady that got involved. I thought it was great. She had a great time. So there were several events in the Naked Olympics. The first was archery, where they got this little plastic bow and arrow from CVS, and they all had to try to like fire the arrow at this tree where they had hung the target. It was just like a rubber thing. It wasn't real or anything. There was a shuttle run, which is always fun to see naked men running. I mean, come on, you know it's true. They were throwing a big medicine ball to see who could throw the medicine ball the farthest. They did a tug of war naked, and this was all in their campsite. And then we moved out to the larger field for the last 2 events, which were again like the discus throw and the long run that we've already talked about. Now, here's the thing. It's hard not to smile and enjoy yourself when you're watching naked adults, totally unencumbered, running around playing games in a completely innocent way. This event was fucking fabulous. I loved it. Now, I'm not ever going to do it. I don't want anyone getting any ideas. I don't want anyone spreading rumors on the internet. There have already been people saying, Carolyn's going to participate in the Naked Olympics. No, goddamn it, I'm not, because I know exactly what would happen about that. But I kind of wish I could, to be honest, because like I know that if I were ever to do something like this, some asshole would take a photo, would be on the internet. Like, I don't want that shit. No one needs to see that except for people who I want to see that and who want to actually see it. All right. We don't need to show the world that. But like, I kind of wish I could, because like watching these people just like running around naked, and like especially the older lady that got involved, she was so excited and like so proud of herself, and I was like, you know what, this is great. And I can just hear the voice of Jeff, who's the guy who runs the Body Freedom Village. Like when she stripped down to get into the Naked Olympics, you could hear Jeff going, all bodies are beautiful. And I was like, you know what, that is actually the message that should be sent about this. The reason I wanted to talk about the Naked Olympics is because I really do think there is this purity spiral on the right where everything, everything is about pedophilia, grooming. That's all these people talk about anymore. It's creepy. If you ever bring up gay people at all on Twitter, just mention LGBT. Don't say anything else. Just mention like LGBT. Don't mention kids. Don't mention grooming. Don't mention any of that. If you just mention LGBT, you're going to have some conservative come into your feed and go, just leave the kids alone. They're all groomers. I promise you. and that's retarded. I don't think that we should be teaching people that hating their body is a good thing. There was nothing sexual about the naked Olympics. Nothing. There was nothing groomer about it. In fact, like, so I think I write this in here that even if now I didn't see any kids over there when it was going on because it was at the complete back half. So the way that Rogers is set up, there is a family area at Rogers, which is where Pork Fest is. There is a family area, but on the complete opposite side of the campground, which it is a really big campground, is where the Naked Olympics were. So it is actually a little bit of a hike to go from the area where kids are to go to the Naked Olympics. And Fish Addict even said, and he was there, the campground was loaded with children. There were none that I saw at the Naked Olympics because the completely opposite side of the flipping campground. V, thank you for the super chat. Twitter at unsafewayworker. Erica, I don't know how to pronounce that. DEI leader at Safeway ran an anti-LGBT, anti-Semitic, racist account, sent her son to beat up an employee who reported to HR. Can you send me evidence of that? My DMs are open on Twitter, so go ahead and send me evidence. That'd be pretty great. So anyway, I wanted to write this because I think we need to be honest about the fact that nudity is not the same as porn, okay? And nudity is certainly not the same thing as abuse. And I think that this is getting lost in all of this. It really doesn't seem like a good idea to teach people that a naked body on its own, with nobody doing anything sexual at all, why are we teaching that's a bad thing? Why is that the message that the conservative right seems hell bent on zoning in on, that anything naked is bad? Anything that, even if it's not sexual, everything related to this is bad. I'm sorry, I just can't get on board with that. Every single person has a body. I don't think it's a good idea to teach people to hate their body or to be ashamed of their body or to think that their body is a bad thing. I don't think, and even if we get into like the sexual stuff, and I don't believe in sexualizing kids, but can we just be honest for a fucking second? Most kids lose their virginity when they're in high school, when they are still underage. There was a time when young boys hiding Playboys under their mattress was a thing. Children are going to access naked materials. They're going to see people naked. It is the way the world works, unless you have a completely sheltered child, which isn't good either. I don't think that repressing people is a good idea. I think that repressing people only leads to more problems later. I think it can lead to a lot of frustration. And I'm going to be honest, this is what's really going to get me in trouble. I think it is just as sad for someone to be raised in a repressive, conservative Christian household where they learn from a very early age that it's not okay to talk about sex, it's not okay to talk about nudity, it's not okay to talk about any of these things, and then they spend the rest of their lives completely sexually repressed, never have good sex in their lives. They think they're having good sex, but they're really not, because it's just the missionary position, because that's all they're really allowed to do. It's all they ever learned about. It's all they ever allowed themselves to dare think about. And that's what they do their entire lives, thinking that that's what good sex is. No, it's not. And I think that repressing yourself like that is just as evil as when you're sexualizing people too young. I'm sorry. I just do. And people can cancel me on the internet for that all you want, but I think that sexual repression causes a metric fuck ton of problems. I don't think that people should be abused. I don't think that people should do things that they don't consent to. I don't think any of that is good. I don't think the kids should be medicalized to into this like trans ideology before they're 18. I don't think anyone should be making decisions to cut off perfectly healthy body pots. God, I turned into a Boston accent there. I don't think anyone should be cutting off perfectly healthy body parts before they reach the age of 25, because that's when your brain reaches the level of logical maturity. But can we please acknowledge that sexual repression is not a good thing? And that someone seeing a naked body and freaking out and going, abuse, grooming, pedophilia, abuse, grooming, pedophilia. That's not good either. Anyway, Fish Addict, did you see the recent high school grad at the comedy show? He talked about masturbation in the 8th grade. He was hilarious. So they know at a young, yeah, of course they know at a young age. Like, I think everyone knows this. Like, when did you first learn about sex? I mean, I was way before 18. When I first learned about sex, when I first saw a naked body, I was probably, I don't even know, like really, really young. Some might say, well, Carlin, we can see how you turned out. Well, I mean, I think I turned out pretty okay. So the point is that I don't think any repression is good. The Naked Olympics was pretty effing great. It was in an area pork fest where everything was clearly marked. People knew this was the body freedom area. No one had to go. No one had to bring their kids. No one had to be involved. And I've been thinking about a lot about this for the past 2 days. I am completely on the body freedom bandwagon. Again, I'm not saying I'm going to strip down next year and do the Naked Olympics, because I can't, because that would end up on the internet and I don't want that on the internet. But like if I could, maybe I would, because it really did seem like an open, welcoming, really positive environment. Like it was just like, you know, it was a place that made you feel good and where you didn't have to carry around shame. And I don't think we should be teaching people that shame is a positive thing. I can absolutely understand how it's a freeing and, dare I say, even empowering experience. This was not a sexual event. The event was not dangerous to children. No one had to be there or participate. No one was hurt. Everyone had a good time. There was nothing sexual about it. And I'm so tired of pretending that anything to do with nudity is inherently sexual or bad, because it's not. And that, first day back, I'm already losing my voice. And that brings me to Libs of TikTok. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But we're going to take this super chat. Thank you, Rottweiler. That's another problem with the Puritan right. They're so prudish to talk about sexuality in a healthy way with their kids, and they contribute to how the left captures the kids into queer Marxism. That's exactly right. You want to know what's going to happen when you refuse to talk about sexuality in a normal way with your kids? They're going to rebel against you, and they're going to end up having a metric ton of sex. And they're probably the ones that are going to end up pregnant because you never taught them about condoms or how to prevent pregnancy, or dare I say, even how babies are made. Kids rebel against their parents. The very best thing that you can do if you don't want your kids to like go off and do some really crazy shit is to speak to them about these subjects as though it's natural. Yes, sex is very natural and absolutely a gift from God, and we shouldn't be making people ashamed for saying that. I'm sorry. No one here is talking about sexualizing kids. No one is talking about that. The more I would make a bet today, I would make a bet that if we're going to come up with a competition and people had to choose between being sexually repressed their entire lives or being like sexually empowered, like which are they going to choose? Which option seems more appealing to you? To be sexually empowered and to be able to do what you want as an adult, completely consensually, all that good stuff, or to be sexually repressed your entire life? People, just as a biological effing necessity, are going to choose being sexually empowered, being sexually, dare I say, liberated, to use a socialist word. Offering a solution that is all about sexual repression and like feeling shame over every single thing is only going to turn people away. Yeah, exactly. Baby Jesus cries when you show your naughty bits. Ooh, it's so scary. It's so scary. But I saw a chat I wanted to highlight. I walk around the house naked all the time. I never freaked out when my kids walked in on me. Naked is normal. Making them feel weird about it makes them feel like there's something wrong with it. Like I said, I saw whole families running around naked, including little kids. There was nothing sexual about it. They were literally just running around naked, having a great time. I mean, come on. So that brings me to Libs of TikTok. So, Libs of TikTok tweeted out a video from the Seattle Pride Parade. Now, would anyone be surprised to find out that there were naked people at the Pride Parade in Seattle? Would anyone be surprised that that would occur? Now, we can have a conversation of, is it appropriate for naked people to be riding bicycles down the street in Seattle? I mean, we can have that conversation. Is it appropriate? But is anyone really surprised by it? I'll wait for chats. Hang on. I mean, I've been to more than a few pride parades in my day because they're generally pretty fun. And I'm an adult and I'll do what I want. I'm not surprised there were naked people in the pride parade. I mean, they weren't fucking or anything. Like, this is something that is completely and totally predictable, especially in a place like Seattle. So Libs of TikTok tweeted out this video of like naked people riding bikes in a pride parade. Nothing was sexual about it. And it led me to agreeing with someone that I never thought I agree with, because I think Brian Krasenstein is a jackass. I think his brother's a jackass too. I think there's two of the dumbest people on all of Twitter. And yet I had to agree with what he said. He tweeted, "Let me get this straight. Libs of TikTok tweeted out a video of naked men on bicycles in order to make a point that naked men on bicycles should not be parading in front of kids." And he agreed with that. Okay, fine. I would argue kids didn't need to be there. No one forced anyone to bring their kids to a pride parade in Seattle. I promise you. Have you guys been to Seattle? Because I've been to Seattle. I know exactly what street they had that parade on. There are no homes on that street. It's a city street. It's like if you are coming into Seattle to go to the pride, it's not like you just walked out onto your front yard and, oh, lo and behold, naked people on bicycles. That was along like a main street in the city of Seattle. Like, you had to proactively go there. No one forced you to go there. No one forced you to take your kids there. If you didn't want to be there because you saw naked people riding bikes up the street, you could turn around and leave. That's my position. If you don't want your kids to see nudity, then don't take them to a pride parade in the middle of Seattle. And if you do see it coming, you're like, nope, cover their eyes and then like walk away. It's really, really easy. Anyway, let's continue. But in order to make this point, they share a video of naked men on bicycles on Twitter where millions of kids can now see the video. He's not wrong about this. Note that I'm only sharing a screenshot of the video and not retweeting it because I actually don't think the kids should be viewing naked men on bicycles online, unlike Libs of TikTok. Twitter is open to kids 13 years and older according to their terms of service, and Libs of TikTok knows this. Here's my point, and the point that Brian Krasenstein is making. If Libs of TikTok actually cared about preventing children from seeing naked men on bicycles, then Libs of TikTok would never have tweeted out the video in the first place. Or they would have censored it to cover up the dicks before they tweeted it out, because more children, minor children, saw that video because Libs of TikTok tweeted it out than were at that Pride Parade in Seattle, I promise you. The right doesn't really care about any of this. This is the game the right plays. We talked about the language game the left plays, where they change the definitions of words. This is the game that the right plays. The right pretends to care about grooming. They pretend to care about protecting kids. They pretend that all of this stuff is just morally reprehensible and everyone agrees. And I don't even know why we're even having this conversation. They pretend, but they don't actually care about the things that they claim to care about. If Libs of TikTok actually cared about protecting children from seeing that video of the naked people on the bicycles because it was oh so harmful and offensive, they never would have tweeted out to their 2.4 million followers in the first place. And every single right-wing influencer that retweeted this, to include the post-millennial, by the way, because I'm pretty sure that's where Libs of TikTok got the video. Every single person who tweeted this video saying, we have to protect the children from the naked people riding the bicycles. None of them care about it either. Because again, why are you tweeting out an uncensored video on a platform that has millions of underage people on it if you don't want them to see this video because it's so morally reprehensible that naked people would be riding bicycles and not doing anything sexual? That's the game the right plays. The outrage porn virtue signal right. Let's see. We shouldn't be teaching people to be ashamed of their bodies. If you're going to feign being angry about this, maybe you should be angry with Libs of TikTok for sharing that video to a far larger audience than it would have otherwise. More minors probably saw those naked men riding bikes because of Libs of TikTok. Wouldn't it be easier to just admit that the people who claim to be outraged by this aren't really outraged by this, and they're just using it for likes and shares? There are legitimate problems in the world. There are legitimate problems. There is legitimate grooming going on in school. I've covered it extensively on this channel. I am completely against this stuff being made compulsory because I don't think that schools should be making kids participate in pride parades. That's not cool. But like, this is a parade that was on public property, that was announced in advance, that everyone knew was going to happen, that was completely avoidable. No one had to go to the pride parade. Every single time the right focuses their energy on people that are doing things completely voluntary, wouldn't be pissing off anyone if people on Twitter weren't taking pictures and like reading about it just for fun. Every single time you focus your energy on bullshit like this, you take your energy away from things that actually matter. If you truly believe that everything you don't like is sexual, then maybe you're the one who's just projecting your own sexual repression and unlived urges onto everyone else. I said it. If every time you think LGBT and you think groomer, pedophile, what are you fucking repressing? Because I don't assume gay people are pedophiles. I don't assume trans people are pedophiles. I think that's ridiculous. What are you repressing if you feel like everyone who does something that you might disagree with are a pedophile or a groomer or an evil person? It doesn't make any sense. Why else would you see everything as sexual if you weren't sexually repressed yourself? These things manifest from somewhere, and I don't say that to be mean or cruel, but you guys know that there are therapists that will help you have a healthy sex life if you want that, right? You don't have to be sexually repressed forever, I promise you. It's really not that hard. It's all natural. You're going to figure it out if you allow yourself to. I'm just saying there are people who will help you. Anyway, but don't take your sexual repression bullshit out on other people. I'm suggesting that people should be allowed to see the world differently than you as long as it's voluntary and no one needs to engage with them. Is that so hard? Am I asking too much? I don't think so. So guys, that is there are indeed sex therapists. Absolutely. There are therapists for everything. Come on. All right, guys. So that was my day surrounded by the dicks, or at least in a couple hours surrounded by the dicks. I hope you enjoy that story. We got one more story to talk about today. Oh, Moms for Liberty. Let me get some water. Didn't lose my voice all week at PorkFest. Back on the internet, losing my voice again. All right. So Moms for Liberty decided it would be a good idea to quote Hitler. And as I explained earlier, I find myself in the somewhat, well, annoying position of needing to defend Moms for Liberty, and I'm not happy about it. Because I don't like Moms for Liberty. I'm not talking about the local chapters, okay? If you are in a local chapter of Moms for Liberty and you're feeling offended by this, I am not talking about you. I am talking about the national organization. I think the national organization is garbage. I think it's a grifting organization to make people like Tiffany, who's just like getting all the sympathy points she can. I think Moms for Liberty is a massive grifting operation to make Tiffany here money and to get her status within the conservative community that doesn't really care about liberty. They only care about control. But you know what? Just because I think Moms for Liberty is a bullshit organization, I'm going to do the principled thing. And I'm going to say, this is batshit retarded. It is insane to look at that quote and to believe that Moms for Liberty was quoting Hitler in a positive way. Moms for Liberty, this chapter in Indiana, was quite obviously quoting Hitler as an ominous warning. They were saying the left is taking over the schools, therefore they are going to own the future. We need to fight back against that. And they're absolutely correct. This quote is correct. Remove the name from it. Just cross off Hitler. Just cover it up so you can't see it, okay? He alone who owns the youth gains the future. The left knew this 150 years ago when Marx and Engels wrote the Communist Manifesto. And Hitler, by the way, was a socialist. We all know the party, the National Socialist Party. Socialist. Literally says socialist in the party. So while I think that Moms for Liberty is a bullshit grifting organization that doesn't actually do much of anything productive in the world and that causes more problems than they're worth, they do not deserve to be in the struggle session that they're in right now over this quote. And I think it's important that we say that, because you know what? When I was in a 2-hour spiritual conversation where I was talking about who goes to heaven and who goes to hell and what we're morally obligated to do, and then the conservative right took one quote out of context and made it seem like I was an anti-Semite, and Prager University jumped on that fucking bandwagon and threw me under the bus, I really wish one of them had the ethical principle gumption to stand up and say, she's not saying Hitler was a good fucking person, you assholes. So in this case, I will have the moral courage that Prager University did not have to defend a group of people that I personally can't stand and say that this struggle session that Moms for Liberty is engaging in right now or is being engaged with on the left is absolute and total bullshit. They obviously are not quoting Hitler as a good person. We need to be fucking principled when it comes to these things and defend people even if we disagree with them, because what's right is right, and this is all made up outrage nonsense to, again, gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. They are simply trying to undermine Moms for Liberty. That's it. And we need to stop pretending otherwise. I have more to say on this, but it's going to have to wait until tomorrow because my voice is about run out, and I've got a community Zoom call in about 15 minutes. So, guys, thank you for joining me for my first stream back from vacation. Hopefully my voice starts to... Why is it that I didn't lose my voice all week long? And then my first stream back, my voice is gone again. It's supposed to be rested. I don't know what's going on. But guys, that is all I have for today. Again, please make sure you do head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Get subscribed to the Substack. I will pop the link in the chat below. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, we are also back tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. too for Nothing Remotely Controversial with Joshua. I just talked to him earlier. We got a great show planned for tomorrow. But guys, I will be talking to my supporters in a couple of minutes. If you are a subscriber on the Substack and you want to join us for the community Zoom call, head over to this Unwoke Reflections post. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you will find the Zoom information at the bottom for supporters. It will be posted in Locals and Patreon as well. That's all I got for today, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.